The day shuts down. The games light up. This is BetMGM Tonight with Brad Evans and Pat Boyle on Westwood One Sports.
Hey-o! Welcome on in to a Monday night edition of BetMGM Tonight here on Westwood One Sports. He is Brad Evans, and I am Pat Boyle, and we are brought to you by BetMGM. Make it legendary. Download the app today. Please gamble responsibly. You can watch the show live on YouTube. Just search BetMGM Tonight and hit that subscribe button. You can watch the show live on Twitter at BetMGM Tonight, and you can listen to the program on the Westwood One Sports app, the Odyssey app, SiriusXM Channel 375, and hundreds of local affiliates throughout North America. Phone number to join the show tonight and every night, Monday through Friday, 6 to 11 p.m. Eastern. That number is 310-840-4910. Again, that's 310-840-4910. What a weekend of sports that we had, folks. We had a hell of a weekend in the NBA. We had Cameron Young winning the Players' Championship. We had Team USA, with the help of a gracious strike to recall, beating the DR and moving on to the championship of the World Baseball Classic. But, of course, Conference Championship weekend ended with a bang. Purdue takes down Michigan, and the brackets are out. The madness is finally here. There's no more waiting. We've got all 68 teams lined up, ready to go. And so, Brad, I'll ask you right out of the gate here, brother. You are the college hoops junkie, man. This has got to be, you got to be feeling like it's Christmas Eve over the next couple of nights here, with a couple of early Santa gifts mixed in with the first four, or a couple of extra candles being lit early, whatever metaphor you want to make, man. And when the brackets came out 24 hours ago, your number one reaction, your biggest takeaway, maybe the biggest jaw dropper or the biggest, wow, this team's got a great path, this team's got a terrible path, this team shouldn't have been in, this team should have been in. What was your number one takeaway to the brackets, the pristine, gorgeous, beautiful brackets that sit before us?
Oh, thank you once again, as always, my friend, for teeing me up. And Merry March Madness to you and yours. 'Tis indeed the greatest time of the year. We had just a scintillating and downright delicious appetizer in championship week. So many heart-stopping games, so much high drama from beginning to end, and that Jaden Bradley, a dagger to knock off Iowa State, the Big 12 Conference Championship game, still sitting at the top of my dome right now. That was downright ridiculous. But yeah, looking at the overall field, my initial reaction was the committee did a damn good job. Look, they got all 68 teams correctly, into the big dance. There were no curveballs thrown with some of the at-larges. So they stuck to their guns. They stuck to the metrics. They, stuck to their rules and overall measurements, and they absolutely nailed it. I had the last four exactly right. I thought Miami, Ohio was properly placed. The only gripe that I had in my initial takeaway, the overall field, was I felt Vanderbilt was a bit underseeded. This is a team that, of course, beat Florida in the SEC tournament. You might say to yourself, oh, the conference tournament, especially the big boys, I don't mean jack, I don't mean squat. I disagree. This year, I think it meant something. That's why Michigan flipped, with Arizona going to the number 2 overall seed, Michigan sliding down to the number 3 overall seed based on the outcomes in their respective conference tournaments. And I think it really helped Purdue out as well. They were fumbling and tumbling down the mountainside over the last few weeks of the regular season, but able to right the ship in the Big Ten Conference Tournament, ultimately cut down the nets there in Chicago, and they landed not on the 3 line, which a lot of people had. They went to the 2, and I think they really cemented that 2 seed, winning in the semifinals even before they bounced the Michigan Wolverines. But Vanderbilt, to me, I look at the overall metrics. They're number 13 in the net, number 16 in terms of overall strength of schedule, 13-5 in road neutral games, and they faced some mighty competition and took them down. Hey, they won 10 times against quad 1 competition, didn't have a singular quad 3 or quad 4 loss, and you get a 5 seed? That to me was a bit downright ridiculous. in my estimation. So I thought Vanderbilt, you could have had an argument they could have been a 3 seed. I had them placed on the 4 line, but ultimately getting a 5 seed, I think that was a mild injustice. Outside of that, the committee mostly slam dunked it home. Congrats to them.
Yeah, phone number to join the show again, 310-840-4910. Any and all of your takeaways to the brackets. You want to start throwing out predictions right away, we'll take them. Who's in your Final Four? Who's winning your national championship? We'll take them all week long until the madness begins. 310-840-4910. You can also tweet the show at BetMGM tonight. And before we'll get into every region. We're going to break down every region. Coming up in 15 minutes from now, we're going to talk to Dallin Cuff as well, who covers college basketball for the Field of 68, for Westwood One Sports, for TNT, just about everything. So we're going to talk to him in a bit. We're going to get to every game. We're going to get to every region. Don't you worry. But you got to get in on the fun with us, right? I mean, that's the greatest part. Everybody's got a chance of having a perfect bracket. Everybody's got a chance of picking the winner. We want you to be a part of our group. Brad, myself, our producer Brandon Combs, our video producer Monty, our entire crew, we are going to post the link to join our bracket tournament challenge all throughout the week. Very easy to do so. Again, we want to see how much ball you know, and if you know more ball than us. So we've got a group. We did the same thing for the NFL playoffs bracket challenge. We had over 70 entries. That was awesome. Came all the way down to the Super Bowl, of course. And like always, if you've got a decent group size, which we're hoping we've got well over 100 folks here, it's going to come down to probably who's got the national championship winner. So if you check out our Twitters, at PatBoyle44, at Noisy Huevos for Brad, we will be posting the link every day until the tournament begins. Just click the link. It's free to join. It's easy to join. Submit your bracket. Make sure you're in the BetMGM Tonight group, and let's have some freaking fun. Pride is on the line. Brad, before we start getting to our predictions and who we think is going to win the tournament, who we think is going to win each region, you mentioned a 5 seed in Vanderbilt that you thought got hosed, if you will, perhaps mildly hosed. How about the Johnnies? I think they got majorly hosed. This team, St. John's, is number 10 in the country. And I get the AP poll shouldn't directly, equivocate, whatever the hell word you want to use, to what seed they get in the big dance. But St. John's number 10 team in the country. They just won the Big East tournament title. They have only lost one time since January 3rd, and it was to UConn on the road. I get the Big East has had a down year, but Brad, how do the Johnnies not get more love than that? Every loss they've had so far this year has been to a tournament team, with the exception of the one loss to Providence. Outside of that, this is a tremendous resume. They dominated the Big East. They dominated UConn in the Big East tournament final. I get the committee doesn't want to overweight the conference championships, but just like you said, Vanderbilt makes a run all the way to the final. St. John's wins the Big East tournament, and they get a 5 seed? How does that make sense? I think Rick Pitino's got every gripe in the world right now.
Not really. I think the committee actually got that right, so I disagree.
Wow.
And here's the reason why. St. John's, you mentioned that Providence loss. That's an eyesore. That is a drag on the overall profile because it is a quadrant 3 loss. Remember I mentioned Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt being number 13 in terms of overall net, 16 in strength of schedule. By comparison, St. John's, okay, just a slight step lower than the Commodores at number 16 in overall net, but 62 in strength of schedule. All right. So Vanderbilt definitely best them there. And still, Vanderbilt was a 5 seed. On top of that as well, yes, the Johnnies were 9-1 in straight road games this year, but that was against the likes of some of the weaklings of the Big East, and able to rack those wins up. They were only 5-5 in quadrant 1 games. They were an outstanding 11-0 in quadrant 2s, but they had that bad loss on the resume, and the overall strength of schedule was not the greatest by comparison. So again, if you compare it to Vanderbilt on the same seed line, Vanderbilt far and away, in my estimation, I've been doing this as a bracketologist for 18 years, has a better overall resume, a stronger case to be at least up another seed line as a number 4 and possibly number 3. St. John's, number 16 in the net, and everything else that I laid out could, be maybe a 4 seed, but I thought a 5 seed was appropriate because the Big East largely sucked. Let's call a spade a spade. Let's not sugarcoat it at all. It was the fifth best power, and I'm putting that in quotes, power conference in college basketball, and that is the drag of playing in a down league that only got two other representatives with UConn and Villanova, and really a vanilla Villanova team getting on the 8 seed line. So again, I thought St. John's was appropriately seeded by the selection committee, but you live in Jersey. I understand the bias that pumps through your veins, so I get your point of view.
It's not biased. It's not biased. And look, I mean, midway through the season last year, I was crushing Rick Pitino. When he called his team, we're slow laterally. We don't have a lot of athletic guys. We are slow laterally. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, who's the guy that recruited this team? But look, I mean, it worked. They went on a run towards the end of the year. They got a 2 seed, and they get bounced by Calipari in the second round last year. But everything that Rick Pitino has done coaching this team this year that I don't think has an abundant amount of talent, like last year I thought they did, I think it's been tremendous. And look, let's compare them to a team that's seated 2 spots ahead of them, Gonzaga, right? Because we want to talk about conferences that aren't good. Well, the WCC, they got 3 teams in: Santa Clara, St. Mary's, and Gonzaga. But even in conference, there are so many bottom feeders in that conference that Gonzaga gets to roll over, and they lose to Portland. They lost to St. Mary's by 11 on the road. Is it just because, they beat Alabama and they beat Kentucky in non-conference play earlier in the season? I mean, they got steamrolled by Michigan by 40. They played a strong non-conference schedule, but their conference, there's no way it's as strong as the Big East. So I struggle to see how Gonzaga gets a 3 seed and St. John's and Vanderbilt get 5s.
Again, here's your lesson in metrics, mi amigo. And this is what the committee looks at. Have they watched every single second, every single game? No, not remotely close. But they have a method to their madness, and they break everything down via all the advanced analytics that are there at their disposal. There are these things called team sheets, and they have like 3 computer screens that are in front of them. You saw the cutaways to the selection committee room in Indianapolis during the Selection Sunday show there on CBS. And again, they got 3 computer screens that are right there in front of them. And these team sheets come scrolling across the screen that has all the predictive analytics. It has all of the various measurements like the net, the strength of schedule, strength of record, WAB, wins above bubble. That's all the rage right now. Every little measurement, every little particular metric you could possibly think of, they have it there in front of them on these very clean presented team sheets. Gonzaga's metrics really stand out by comparison to St. John's. You look at the Zags, are number 7 in the net. You might say, well, the WCC stinks. That might be taken into somewhat of a consideration. According to KenPom, the WCC is number 8 in the power ratings, while the Big East is number 5. But here is the difference. Gonzaga A is a team that had 2 more quad 1 victories in the overall resume. They finished 7-3 in that category. They also, too, had the quadrant 3 loss, so that loss against Portland on the road earlier this year. Outstanding road neutral record, decent strength of schedule, a comparable strength of schedule. You make an argument, St. John's and Gonzaga, honestly, based on the resumes, should probably be on the same seed line, meaning that 4 seed line makes the most sense. Didn't really work out that way in the end. I think the difference in the equation and the weighing of the various profiles was the fact that the Zags just had 2 more quadrant 1 victories and a little bit higher net overall. That was enough of a difference, because when you're slicing and dicing some of these teams that are very bunched together, very similar in their overall resumes and profile, it's little subtleties like that say this team is a 3, this team is a 4, this team is a 5. It's as simple as that.
One more thing for you here really quickly. I think out of the number 1 seeds, if Michigan doesn't make the Final Four, it'll be a disaster. I think they've got the easiest draw of any of the 1 seeds. You're talking about Georgia or St. Louis in the second round. You're talking about Texas Tech without JT Toppin in the Sweet 16, or Alabama, who today, Aiden Holloway just got arrested on felony charges. We're going to talk to Dallin Cuff here in a bit. We're going to ask him about that. And not to mention, Alabama seems like a complete fraud with the way they played against and lost against Ole Miss. And then they're looking at an Elite 8 matchup, either Virginia, Iowa State. That was the 2 highest seeds. And the other seeds that lurked are Kentucky and Tennessee. And if it's Iowa State or Virginia, Michigan will probably clobber either one of those teams. If the Wolverines are not in the Final Four, it will be a disaster, Brad.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that sentiment. I think somebody else is going to represent, though, in the Midwest region, and I'll share those thoughts a little bit later on. I would also make the argument that Duke has a pretty easy road to hoe to get to the Circle City and represent there in the Final Four. Some people might say, wait a minute, that's the Johnny's region. Wait a second, you jackass. UConn is the number 2 seed. Oh, what about the Sparty Party of Michigan State? Name brand, name brand, name brand. All of those name brands had distinct and measurable weaknesses. I think Duke far and away is a better team, even without Caleb Foster. And we'll see if Pat and Ngamba can play in either round 1 or round 2. We shall see on that. Nothing definitive there. I honestly have a stronger case in my mind that Duke has the easiest road to the Final Four. But I think it's a 1A, 1B conversation between Duke and Michigan, though. Again, there is a team in Michigan's region which I think is going to bounce them. And again, stick around here on BetMGM tonight. We're going to go region by region and break all these picks down. I will share exactly who that is and why I'm probably terribly wrong.
Oh, that's a hell of a tease, though. You're listening to Pat Boyle and Brad Evans on BetMGM tonight, which is sponsored by Progressive Commercial Insurance. They protect small businesses with affordable coverage options. Get a quote today at progressivecommercial.com. All right, we'll take a short break. We're going to talk to Dallin Cuff coming up next. Contributor to the Field of 68, Westwood One Sports, Turner Sports. Very, very much more than that as well. One of the most tapped-in analysts right now in college hoops. Going to talk to Dallin Cuff coming up next. Don't go anywhere. We're just getting rolling here. It is Magic March Monday. I don't know if that's a term. I'm calling it that. The madness is just a couple of days away from officially beginning. This is BetMGM tonight. He's Brad Evans. I'm Pat Boyle. You're listening on Westwood One Sports.
Now, all reports seem to indicate that Mahomes is going to be ready for week 1. It's also March 16th. So we don't know how this is going to go. Maybe Mahomes will be ready and he'll be ahead of schedule. Maybe the Chiefs will look to play it safe with the greatest quarterback that's still playing on the planet. Justin Fields is miscast as a starting quarterback. And I caught a ton of flack last year. Do you all remember? Do you remember when there was that Justin Fields injury scare in training camp? And people melted down like this was like Josh Allen or like Lamar Jackson, like tweaking a leg. Oh my God, season's over. Newsflash. If Justin Fields is your starting quarterback entering the season, and it's not because the starter's hurt, your season's already over. So Justin Fields is not a starting quarterback in the NFL. But that doesn't mean he shouldn't be on a roster. It doesn't mean he's not one of the 64 best quarterbacks in the league. I just don't think he's one of the best 32. Best 64? Absolutely. And we saw that in Pittsburgh a couple years ago, where he did really well to begin the season before Russell Wilson took over. And you can certainly make the case that and you could make this case with any quarterback with this coach, right? That Andy Reid is an awesome coach to kind of coax that out of a quarterback like Justin Fields. Now, maybe Fields never plays, right? Maybe he plays in week 18 if the Chiefs have everything wrapped up. I'm projecting, right? But maybe the Chiefs need him to start a couple games to begin the season in a 1 or 2 game scenario until Mahomes is ready. And I'm making maybe Mahomes is ready. Maybe I have no idea. I really think you could do worse than Justin Fields as your backup quarterback. So I like this for Kansas City. I do. Do you still feel like it's those 4 teams? Do you still feel like it's the 4 1 seeds and everybody else? Duke wins the ACC tournament in pretty impressive fashion with a couple players out, with Foster out, Gungba's hurt. Duke wins the ACC tournament and beats Virginia's really good and survives Virginia in the ACC tournament final. How about Florida, the reigning defending champions, getting annihilated by Vanderbilt in the SEC tournament? That surprise anybody? A lot of people thought Florida was just going to cruise to the SEC tournament championship and maybe have to face Arkansas in the final. They had just beaten Arkansas by 34 points a couple of weeks ago. Vanderbilt said, no. Florida gets bounced in the SEC tournament and might have to play Vandy, by the way, in the Sweet 16. We'll get to that coming up in a little bit. Arizona, kind of unimpeachable, right? Beats Iowa State and Houston to close out a Big 12 tournament championship after winning the Big 12 regular season championship. So tough to feel bad about Arizona. That doesn't mean you have to pick them, but Arizona feels pretty good. And then there's Michigan, losing the Big 10 tournament championship game to Purdue, a team that they had wrecked a couple weeks ago at Purdue. Do you still like all 4 1 seeds? Is it still the 4 1 seeds over the field?
Live lines, late games, and breaking angles. BetMGM tonight with Brad Evans and Pat Boyle. Back now.
Welcome on back. BetMGM tonight, Westwood One Sports. He's Brad Evans. I'm Pat Boyle. Phone number to join. We'll take your phone calls as soon as we finish up with Dallin Cuff here. It is 310-840-4910. But first, the Cavender twins are facing off in the Court of Legends game, and you can enter our Pick a Twin to Win free-to-play game for a chance to win a share of $2 million in bonus bets. How to get this offer in 3 easy steps. Number 1, opt into the Pick a Twin to Win free-to-play game. Number 2, select which Cavender twin, Haley or Hannah, you think will win the Court of Legends one-on-one basketball game hosted at the Bank at Bellagio in Las Vegas, Nevada. And 3, if the twin you select wins the game, you'll win a share of $2 million in bonus bets. All right, let's bring on Dallin Cuff, a broadcaster and a soccer lobbyist, and he's a contributor to the Field of 68, TNT, CBS, Westwood One Sports. He's everywhere. You can follow him on Twitter at Dallin Cuff. Dallin, thanks for joining us, man. How you doing on this Monday here before the madness begins?
Oh, Pat, Brad, I'm good. We're doing a lot of talking. It is talking season for us, but that is a good thing because that means the March Madness is here. The bracket is before us.
There you go. Right on. Let's start with Alabama, who are never short of making headlines, whether positive or negative. I've got an interview in Cardinal Sin here for you out of the gate, a 3-parter, but I'll try to make it easy. First, Nate Oates said last night he's disappointed that Alabama got a 4 seed despite making the big dance for a program record-tying 6th straight time. They lost to Ole Miss, who was the 15th seed in the SEC tourney just a few days ago. Do you think Nate Oates is right to be disappointed, or do you think Bama was correctly given a 4 seed? Second part, what happens now with Aiden Holloway, their second leading scorer, arrested this morning on a felony drug charge with first-degree possession of marijuana? Pete Thamel reporting that he is not with the team as he goes through the investigation process from the University of Alabama. So I don't know if he's going to suit up on Friday when the Tide play Hofstra. That's what I was going to ask you, but I don't know if you know. And then third, should Bama be on upset alert versus the Hofstra Pride?
A triple barrel out the gate. First and foremost, they are appropriately seated, I feel like. So I'm not sure what Nate's complaining about there. Secondarily, bro, I have no clue what's going to happen here. I know it's a big deal. It's your second leading scorer the week of the NCAA tournament. I'm not sure. It's a felony charge in his state with the amount of marijuana he had in his possession. So who knows what that entails, how this is going to operate. And the weird thing is, I was talking to Brad about this last night on Field of 68. I liked Hofstra with the number to begin with. This is before we knew what this had happened, before this had happened. So Hofstra is a team that when you have to have upsets, you got to do a couple things right. You have to have a style play that you can impose on a power conference team. Well, for Hofstra, they play one of the bottom 50 tempos in the country. Ironic, given their coach's nickname is Speedy. But they play bottom 50 tempo in the country. They shoot it really well. They don't take a boatload of threes, but it's the top third of the country. But they shoot it at almost 37%. So the top 30 in the nation in shooting threes. I think they can make this thing into a half-court game. Cruz Davis is the CAA Player of the Year. He's a guy that can late shot clock, go get your bucket, whatever needs to happen. He can go make it happen. He also has a running mate back there in Preston Edmead, freshman of the year in the conference. Just the kid's a stud. And the sad part is he probably won't be with Hofstra next year. This is a big-time shop window for him. He's already performed well enough during the year, but I think this is a big opportunity for him. And they have they offensive rebound the ball. Defensively, they're going to have to clean it up. But this is one thing that Alabama doesn't really have. They've got great guard play. That's why I'm listing Holloway or second-best guard as a problem. But they don't really have physical bigs that will dominate them. That's been their issue all year. And when you're playing a high-major team, a mid-major team, and you can't exploit that physicality advantage you might have, that size, those God-given things, that can be problematic. So I really like Hofstra with the number. I liked it last night. I love it now. And I think Alabama could be in for a tough one, to say the least.
Yeah, Talon, I think that number is going to shrink rapidly based on that Holloway news. Another keynote here, folks, just to piggyback on what Talon's selling you. Hofstra, number one in effective field goal percentage defense in all of college basketball over the last 30 days. Keep that in mind. All right, Talon, long time no talk, mi amigo. People always fall in love with the Cinderella this time of year. Give us your favorite and true Cinderellas. We're not talking about 10 seeds. Hell, we ain't talking about 11 seeds. I need you to go deep into your bag. A number 12 or lower seed you feel has the best chance to don a glass slipper. Who is it?
I think it's the best team in the MAC, and the team I've been saying is the best team in the MAC for the last 5 or 6 weeks, and that's Akron. I think they're better than Miami of Ohio. They lost on the road to the Red Hawks by 4 points. And they've only lost one other time since then. It was out of conference. They went down to play Troy in a true road game. We know Troy is good. Troy's in this field winning the Sun Belt. And they lost that game by a couple points. But Johnson is an outstanding guard, but they're a veteran team. They shoot the heck out of the ball. They play at pace, which I think they can get up and down and be comfortable in that situation. They've played other big high major teams. Some they've given a little bit of a scare. Purdue's game was closer than that score indicates. And I think they're in a good spot with Texas Tech. We obviously know JT Toppin. We don't know what's going to happen with Christian Anderson. They say he's coming back, but in what capacity? The soft muscle issues, groin, hammies are always kind of questionable. So I think they're capable of hanging with them from a physical standpoint. They can score with them, and I really like their matchup. I like their experience. The third straight time they've been in the tournament. John Gross is a really good coach, and I like their matchup. I like their spot right now. So give me Akron to win, and given what I just said about Alabama or Hofstra. And Hofstra could be a potential upset. We could be looking at a 12-13 game. And even if it's 12-4 against Hofstra and Akron, man, there'll be a ton of points and a lot of threes in that game. But Alabama is a make-miss team, part of the same thing. If they're off, anybody can beat them. I think Akron could be the shot. And it's a little bit by process of elimination because as much as I like Akron, I have them move forward in my bracket, winning one game, not two. There aren't other 12 pluses that I'm really into. And I do think that's more speaks to the nature of college basketball right now, where if you're a good mid-major player, you don't stay there and build on that career and then threaten teams in the NCAA tournament. You just leave and you go up a level to the high major level. So if they are taking all the best players, you're having a bigger separation. So I think there's less teams in that 12-plus line that I really think can win a game here. But I really do like the Zips.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, my man. Based on the bracket they revealed last night, I think you and I are extremely symbiotic in a lot of our picks. And that brings me to the next question. I already know the answer, but please share with the audience. Most analysts who cover college basketball across the country seem unified in their chalk belief. Where do you stand on the number one seeds reaching Indianapolis this year? Who is the most vulnerable? And what team of the vulnerable takes it down? So what are your thoughts on the chalk and a team that could exit stage left before reaching Circle City?
Yeah, I have 3 of the 4 ones in my final 4. I feel excellent about 2 of them. That's Arizona and Florida. I think Arizona's had the highest floor all season long. I feel like they're definitely going to get there. I like their draw a lot, too. I think they have the weakest 2 in Purdue, the weakest 3 in Gonzaga. They do have a tough 4-5 game, Wisconsin or Arkansas. I happen to have Wisconsin in that Sweet 16, but overall, I think Arizona's got a good spot. I like where UF is as well. My challenger with Duke and Michigan, and I'll start with Duke as an injury-related concern more than anything else. We know there's no Caleb Foster. We wonder what Patrick Gumbel is going to look like. I've said for weeks he is their most important player. Nobody can approximate what he does defensively for them in terms of altering shots and patrolling the paint. Nothing similar on the defensive glass, on the offensive glass, his rim running. He's a difference maker, and we've seen this in games throughout the years. When he's in foul trouble, that team is a little bit different, especially on the defensive end of the floor. Up to see how good where he's at. Now, I do think their draw, Brad, as we know, has all these big brand names, and some of it's brand names, some of it's real. Yeah. But I think it's more like their 8-9 game. I think that's the hardest 8-9 game, TCU or Ohio State. I think that's a tough spot. Obviously, after that, it's St. John's or Kansas. Kansas is the most enigmatic team in this tournament. I have no idea what to expect from these guys. If they guard at an elite level like they did for parts of this season, and you mix in Bill Self and Melvin Council's doing his thing, and then Darren Peterson actually is efficient. He was really efficient in the games where he played 18 to 20 minutes. Everyone would crush him on. And then when he's played these 30-plus minutes, he's been very inefficient. So I don't know what we're going to get out of them, but if they see them in a Sweet 16, that's tough. Or if it's St. John's, it's tough. I think the bottom of the bracket is a little weaker. I like Michigan State there, but I think Duke is to have a lot of minefields, and it begins with their own health. And then it's the teams. So I'm concerned about them. I have them surviving it, but don't love it. Michigan I have going out to Iowa State. I like the top part of Michigan's bracket. They have a lot of teams that can bomb some threes, which we saw Wisconsin do that to them in the regular season and beat them in Ann Arbor. The game last week was a little bit different. But you have Michigan and Iowa State. That's your 1-2 matchup. Iowa State top 5 in the nation in defensive turnover rate. We know that's one of Michigan's issues is turning the ball over, 17% of their possessions. That's 14th in the Big Ten, bottom half of the nation. This is how they feast the Cyclones do, and they can keep you on one side in terms of their ball screen coverages. They will blitz ball screens. They will pressure Elliot Cadeau and other guards. And outside of Cadeau, there's no real ball handlers that are really good. I mean, Yaku All-American, but he's not necessarily handling the ball all the time, or you want him handling the ball through ball screens that are blitzing you. But there's no backup now. LJ Cason's injuries, I think, is significant. And when Cadeau struggles and they can pitch it all over the yard a little bit, this team can struggle. So give me the Cyclones knocking off Michigan. That's the team I think is the most in concern as it relates to reaching Indianapolis.
Oh, I heart you, Dallin.
Oh, good stuff. Talking with Dallin Cuff here on BetMGM tonight on Westwood One Sports. He's Brad Evans. I'm Pat Boyle. Dallin is a contributor to the Field of 68, broadcaster for Westwood One Sports right here on this very network. You can see him on TNT Sports, Yahoo Sports as well. Follow him on Twitter at Dallin Cuff. Dallin, Miami of Ohio drew a fiery debate amongst the country as to whether or not they should get into the big dance, despite the undefeated 31-0 regular season. And they got bounced in their first game in the MAC tournament to UMass. Ultimately, they were one of the last 4 in, despite a net rating in the 60s and a Ken Palm rating in the 90s. However, they're playing in Dayton in the first 4 against SMU on Wednesday. Just a quick reminder, Indiana State got left out 2 years ago, despite a top 30 net rating and a top 40 Ken Palm rating. Do you think the committee got it right with the Red Hawks? And do you think we will see something like this again anytime soon?
No, we won't see anything like this again. This is only the 7th time we've seen this since 1979. Now, all those 6 other teams were 1 seeds, and they were high major teams, with the exception of Wichita State, which was just, but Wichita State had, 3 pros on the roster. So a little different situation. It was unique in the fact that they couldn't get scheduled or did not schedule a high major game, or as we call a guarantee game, when the high major pays you X number of dollars, $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 to come play. You usually take your beat and then you go back home. They tried to play some of them. I think they should have tried to play harder to get some on their schedule, but they didn't, and it benefited them. Here's the deal. The regular season has to matter for something. And you can only play who's in front of you, and you can only play your league, and you can play your non-conference schedule, which you have more control of. That said, they didn't lose a single game within league play. 28 Division I games, 31 games overall. If we're not rewarding that, this isn't football where we have 12 spots. We have 37 at-large bids. 37. So you can give up one to see, does this team deserve to be? Is this team good enough to be here? Because we didn't really get to measure them the way we wanted to during the year against other high majors or teams, other tournament teams. They played Akron, as I mentioned before. They beat Akron at home. That was their one quad 2 win for quite some time. And then I believe Wright State, it's the very last week, Wright State edged ahead of the number they needed to have in terms of their net ranking to make it 2 quad 1 games and 2 quad 1 wins. But all that said, they deserve to be there because they won every single game. Now we get to answer some questions. I was surprised they put them in Dayton, though, guys. I thought they would want the story. I thought they would say, we're just going to plug them right into Wednesday, Thursday. They're going to build this up all week. But honestly, they went about their process in an appropriate way. The team deserves to be there, but where they deserve to be seated. Well, given their resume, they should be seated in Dayton. So I appreciate what they did. I didn't think they would do it, but I'm glad that they went through their process and the numbers bear it out. They got to play themselves in. Now, it could be a good thing for the MAC and for them because you get what's called a unit, the multiple teams you get in there, and the unit is the amount of money you get just for being in the tournament. And each win, you get another unit. Well, this year's the unit's going to be somewhere between $600,000 and $700,000. So that's a significant amount of money for a mid-major team. They get 2 units for 2 MAC teams. And now having this opportunity to play in Dayton, a more like-minded opponent that maybe you can beat more than a 6-11 game, okay, roll it out there. If you win, you get more money for the program. Now you're in the big dance. You're growing your popularity because the public is hammering them right now in terms of betting lines. And when it came out at 7.5, and I think it's down to 6.5. I love SMU in this spot, but nonetheless, I'm glad the Red Hawks are there. Let's let them toss it up and see what they can do.
Yeah, first and 95, I think, wins that game. That should be a very exciting one, to say the least. Now, the last one for me, amigo. Big Blue Nation jumped all over Kentucky immediately in its 7-10 matchup against Santa Clara in the Midwest region. Do you feel the blue-colored glasses are swaying their view negatively? Can Herb Sendek's squad spring to mild upset despite the early tip at 11:30 p.m. Eastern time on Friday? Right now, Kentucky is favored by 3.5 points on BetMGM. Dallin, fade or follow the Wildcats laying the 3.5?
I am fading the Wildcats here. I like Santa Clara in this spot. I think that obviously that line moved. It was open at 2.5 right away, and then I think it's the public betting these brand names. I mean, you get it. Kentucky is one of the biggest ones, if not the biggest one. So they got hammered, and that moved up to 4.5. You tell me now it's down to 3.5. I like Santa Clara. I think they're a team that, again, what can you shoot the ball? Can you score the ball? Can you hang with these guys athletically? I think that's a Kentucky team that has some issues. They need to play defense. They have a small margin of error, and if they defend at a high level and they are able to play inside out. What I mean by that is not throwing necessarily balls to Moreno or Garrison on the block. They need to get feet in the paint. Oway attacking, Aberdeen attacking, feet in the paint, play from there, score in there, kick out from there. They can be good. The problem is they fall in love with some threes sometimes. I think they also are a team that have a little mentality issue. Maybe they hear the Santa Clara talk, that helps them, but seeing a Santa Clara across from them as a 10 seed as opposed to another high major team, I think is not good for their psyche. I think Santa Clara is good, man. They shoot it, they share it, they don't turn it over, they turn you over, they can speed up some guys. I really like their team. I like their spot. I like them with the number. I have them in my bracket. I like it more with the number. I took it at 4.5 last night. Once it moved up there, I felt like that was going to come back down. But I like the situation they're in right now. And unfortunately for Big Blue Nation, if this team got to a Sweet 16, it would be a massive win for this Kentucky team. They are still playing without their 2 best players. They have for a long time now. But they found out something about themselves that you got to play hard and compete. They weren't even doing that early in the year. So that's like table stakes for them. And sometimes they don't do it. And if they don't do it, even in a tournament game, you're in real trouble.
Good breakdown. Talking to Dallin Cuff here for another 2 to 3 minutes or so on BetMGM tonight here on Westwood One Sports. Dallin, maybe you don't foresee a 2 seed going down to a 15 seed this year. We saw it in 21, 22, and 23. But is there a 2 seed who could be in big trouble in a second round game? I know Brad just asked you about Santa Clara versus Kentucky. Are there other 7 versus 10 matchups where you think the winner could pose a huge threat to either Houston, UConn, Iowa State, or Purdue? And I'll take out Iowa State because I know you said you have them knocking out Michigan. So do you see Houston, UConn, or Purdue maybe in trouble in a second round?
Yeah, I think Purdue's the weakest 2 seed. I think they're in a dangerous spot. And I know we just watched them win the Big Ten tournament. We have a recency bias, so those were good wins. And they performed well. That said, I can't forget the 12 games prior to that where they were 6-6, and defensively they were getting carved up, and they lost at home, multiple times. Now we know, Illinois is good, and you've got other teams. I think Illinois, Wisconsin are good, but you lost those games. Those are home games, and sometimes you got kind of dominated within them. They're a team that doesn't guard that well, but I think as good as Braden Smith is in pick and roll situation, when you put more athletic, physical bigs on him, he can be in some trouble. So I think Mizzou. Bear in mind, Mizzou's playing at home, guys. They're playing in St. Louis. That is the smallest line I've seen on any of these games right now. It's 1.5, Missouri and Miami. I like Mizzou as the dog, but straight money line in that play. I think Miami has to. They're playing through their bigs. They are playing through Uday. They're playing through Renault. And the one thing Missouri has is some size. They are physical at the 3, 4, and 5 spot. They're big. They're physical. They can get in you. They can disrupt you. I like their spot situation right there, and I like them playing at home for sure. I think that stuff can matter in a situation like this. Secondarily, when they play Purdue, I think that same stuff factors. Your offensive rebounding ability, they get to the line a ton. Purdue doesn't tend to foul a lot, but you need teams to take it at them, and I think that's what Missouri is going to be able to do. And defensively, I think you're going to see a team that's going to be able to guard them and disrupt a little bit Braden Smith with their length and athleticism of their guards. I think it's going to have a problem. If you can get into him a bit, you can change the game, and you can get at him when he's on defense. Now you've really changed the game. I like where they're at. Missouri did not finish the season playing that well, but they had a tough road toward the end there. I like them winning this game. I like them beating Purdue. That's my upset pick, and there's a pretty large price. I think what was the last night? I think it was 12-1 to get to the Sweet 16 to get through Miami and Purdue. But give me the Tigers at home.
Wow. All right. Good stuff. Dallin, we appreciate the time, man. It'll be here before we know it. I mean, 24 hours from now, we'll have a first 4 game, but in less than 3 days, it'll officially begin. We appreciate you so much, man. Thank you.
Anytime. Be well, guys.
Thanks, Dallin.
There you go. Dallin Cuff, big fan of the Mizzou Tigers. 20-12. They are the 10 seed in that West region, where he thinks they beat Miami, and then he thinks they could knock off the 2nd seed Purdue Boilermakers. Not enough love for the big Oscar Clough, but I get it, man. Missouri's got some size as well, and I think there could be a guard disadvantage there, or they could take away the advantage that Braden Smith normally brings. All right, we'll take a short break. 310-840-4910 is the phone number to join the show. 310-840-4910. When we come back, we'll talk a little NBA, and then we're going to get right back to the brackets. So there is a couple of big NBA games coming up. We'll preview a couple of them. We'll take your phone calls as well, though, on the March Madness at 310-840-4910. We got a lot more brackets, picks, predictions coming up for you all throughout this show. So don't go anywhere. He's Brad Evans. I'm Pat Boyle. This is BetMGM tonight on Westwood One Sports.
It all just kind of lands to me like this A.J. Brown trade is going to happen. Like, what is the motivation for these reports to get out that the Eagles have turned down a couple offers already, unless what their MO is to coax a better offer from someone else? Like, what's the motivation? If it were just like if they really weren't interested, it would just be like the Eagles are not trading A.J. Brown. That's not what the reporting is. The reporting is that they've listened to offers and they've turned those offers down, with the implication being, again, let's all deductive reasoning 101, that a better offer, maybe they'd listen. I know this is a sensitive point for a lot of people, and that people are convinced that A.J. Brown's coming back. You know that I think he shouldn't, and I think that whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, you got to do one of two things. You get rid of the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, or you get rid of A.J. Brown. And you're never firing the quarterback who's Super Bowl MVP. It's never going to happen, which means A.J. Brown's got to go. And everything that's happened over the course of the last, let's call it 4 or 5 days with the Philadelphia Eagles leads me to believe this is a matter of if or excuse me, when and not if. A matter of when and not if. Took me 2 tries, but I got that right. Again, it's Monday and it's March. My brain's on college basketball. Of when, not if, A.J. Brown gets traded from the Philadelphia Eagles. The 4 top teams are the field, something we talked about 2 weeks ago. And anyone and everyone that chose the field in that scenario, so a team outside of Duke, Florida, Arizona, or Michigan to win the national championship, it felt like every single person, some mentioned Houston, everyone mentioned UConn as being the one team you would want to have outside of those 4. How do you feel about UConn now? I am in no way, shape, or form saying that UConn can't get there. Of course they can. Like UConn, when UConn plays at its best, can beat anybody. Danny Hurley's a championship coach. You know, you drop the regular season finale against Marquette, which is absolutely brutal, and St. John's wins the Big East regular season as a result, and then the Johnnies run them off the floor in the Big East championship game. How you feeling about UConn right now? Could UConn lose to UCLA? How about another question involving the Huskies? What if it's UConn against Tom Izzo and Michigan State in the Sweet 16? With Jeremy Fears, and I'll tell you what, all of UConn's guards better wear cups in that game because he's coming to kick you in the junk. That's his favorite thing to do. Who wins that game? Izzo or UConn? Oh, it is fascinating.
The old South Florida folks down there, if they can get by Louisville and that round 1 game, I don't think, and you want to talk to what, you know what, we'll go frauds here. You can get that Tom Izzo, Mr. March out of here. I think they're going out. Wouldn't even be surprised if North Dakota State gives a competitive game. I think South Florida gets past Louisville, gets past Michigan State, and maybe has a little bit of a chance there to make a run at the bottom of the bracket. At the top, I'm just going to go square with you. I think Duke runs it over. Johnny's, Kansas, maybe one of those two, can put a game together. But it's Duke for me, and it's going to be a Duke-South Florida matchup down there in the East. Duke gets through in the end.
Every score, every swing, every sharp take. BetMGM tonight continues with Brad Evans and Pat Boyle.
Welcome back to BetMGM tonight here on Westwood One Sports. He's Brad Evans, I'm Pat Boyle, and the phone number to join the show is 310-840-4910. That's 310-840-4910. Huge thanks to Dallin Cuff for joining us last segment. Great stuff. And Brad, you were doing a show with him on the Field of 68, burning the midnight oil last night, my man. So I know that you were burning the midnight oil. He was burning the midnight oil. So look, I know these next 48 to 72 hours here, man, this is what legacies are built upon, both on the floor and for, the folks with the microphones in front of their face. So can't wait for this week with you, man. It's going to be awesome. We're going to pivot here for just a few moments just to talk a little NBA because we are less than a month away from the NBA playoffs. We got a couple of big games coming up here tonight. And, one that's flown under the radar here, a game of this magnitude. Let's start in the Eastern Conference with a game that's tipping off in 15 minutes. You got the Orlando Magic and you've got the Atlanta Hawks, both in the Eastern Conference. Right now, the Magic are the 5 seed in the East at 38 and 28. The Hawks are the 9 seed at 36 and 31. Here's the thing. The Hawks are the hottest team in the NBA. They've won 9 games in a row. All of their trades that they've pulled off, getting rid of Trae Young, bringing in Jonathan Kuminga, Jalen Johnson turning into a stud here, getting rid of Kristaps Porzingis, it has all worked for them. And they're red hot right now. And the Magic, they're right behind them. They've won 7 in a row. So you got 2 teams red hot, 2 teams desperate to continue to improve their playoff seeding here. Something's got to give tonight in this game, Brad. And honestly, I don't know what it's going to be. It's a very tight spread. The Hawks are 3.5-point favorites. I think it's going to be a good game here. It's going to kind of have a feel of almost like a playoff game. So I don't know if you buy into either of these teams down the stretch here, because in order for either of them to win a series in the playoffs, they're going to have to knock out a team that's seeded higher. Right now, the Magic would square off with the Cavaliers in the first round. The Hawks would obviously have to come through the play-in tournament and then beat the Pistons or the Celtics. So I don't know if you buy into either team in the playoffs, but if you buy into a team or if you buy into a player tonight, what would that be?
Yeah, I buy it into an under on one of the standout stars in this game, a member of the Orlando Magic, and Paolo Banchero, the former Dookie, baby. I'll take the under at 8.5 rebounds. A little bit heavier juice there to -135, but here's the reason why I am a willing investor. Yes, I know Paolo is averaging 9.3 rebounds per game in the month of March, but in 2 prior matchups against the ATL, he went over once and under once, had 11 rebounds in one game, 6 in the other. I think the truth is going to be somewhere in the middle, and I think Captain Hook, shiver me timbers, could come into play. He's been under 8.5 boards in 3 of his last 4, and the Hawks have allowed the 5th fewest opponent rebounds per game over the last 10 at 41.1. Again, put all together, Paolo Banchero under 8.5 rebounds. For me, a strong play in this game. Atlanta should command the glass.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the star player on the other side, and I'm going to fade him in a little bit of a variety here. Jalen Johnson, who I think is a stud. I think he's awesome. I think he is tremendous. I think this guy could be second team or third team All NBA. Like consecutive years running here. He's only 24 years old. Another former Dookie. I just think his number is way too high, and I know he's kind of averaged that for the season here. His points plus rebounds plus assists, it's 41.5 on BetMGM. I got to go under here. I got to go under because I think Orlando knows that he's the head of the snake, and they got to cut him off if they want to have a chance to win this game. Granted, the 2 times they played each other, all the way back in the beginning of the season, but in those games, Jalen Johnson, 12 points in the first game, only 17 points in the second game, didn't even come near what his points, rebounds, and assists is for tonight. So I think Orlando, if they can kind of recreate that formula, make somebody else be the point guard, make somebody else be the facilitator, make somebody else score the basketball, I think they're going to have a decent chance of winning this game. So I'll go under Jalen Johnson's points plus rebounds plus assists. All right, let's go to Boston. Suns at the Celtics tonight. Jason Tatum back in the lineup after he sat out Boston's last game. They're 44 and 23. They are continuing to try to chase down the Pistons for the 1 seed in the East. They're 4 games back. And then you got the Phoenix Suns, who are, starting to lose some ground there. They're on the 7th seed in the West, game and a half back of both the T-Wolves and the Nuggets. Dylan Brooks still out with a broken hand. Their center Mark Williams remains out. I think the Celtics roll in this game, Brad. So I'll take Boston to cover here. I think they win it by double digits. What do you like in this one?
Well, that may feed in my under on Jason Tatum, 7.5 rebounds. I hope they do roll, and he sits out there for most of the fourth quarter, -115 juice on that. You look at Phoenix in the last 10, they have allowed the second fewest rebounds per game in the entire NBA, giving up just 23.2 boards per game. Tatum's been over twice, under the other 2 times, and his 4 games back, averaging 28.3 minutes per game. Yeah, bring on the blowout, man. I'll play the under on Tatum. 7.5 boards at -115.
All right, very good. We've got Spurs and Clippers. That'll be a good game coming up later tonight, 10 o'clock Eastern, so we can do a little preview for that game as we get near it. We're going to take a short break, and we get right back to the brackets, right back to March Madness. When we return, we were going to breaking down the South region. That is number 1 Florida. That's coming up next here on BetMGM tonight.